Hi, this is Charles with a introduction to Paul Koenig's Market Garden, which costs less than $20 from Victory Point Games right now. The base game itself, this game particular, is a paper map, and the units are activated using chit markers. I'll get into how the game works in a second, but I did want to say that there is a new edition of this coming out very soon, which has a mounted board, laser cut counters, and it looks really good. I'm really impressed with what Victory Point Games has done lately and stuff. But let's talk about this game real quick. The game works off activation markers, which are placed in the cup, and then you draw that activation marker out, and that unit on the board is activated. So if you look at the top, you'll see this is the 9th Panzer Division. This is the 1st Airborne. Down here we have the 1AL Airborne. Down here we have the 9th Panzer Division, an independent unit that can act independently. And there's another one here with a hit marker on it and stuff. So as you draw that chit, that unit can enter play. So one interesting thing that happens in this game is the sequence includes a paratroop landing sequence. So the very first turn of the game, we have the game turn 1 here, which is a paratrooper underneath. And these guys can enter from the left-hand side of the board above the river, and their objective is to take Arnhem right here. Now, in starting out, these units have already moved. This is basically game turn 2 of what I've been playing so far. And I've moved those units in to defend Arnhem a little bit. But what Paul Koenig suggested that I do was go ahead and activate the paratroopers for the first 2 activations, just because I didn't see the point of having the Germans react when they didn't even know that the British paratroopers were coming in, because it was like a surprise attack. So he just suggested pull out the 2 Allied paratrooper markers and apply those 2 first. So I've done that. The paratroopers have entered the game. We've already entered combat. The paratroopers were set up here, and then I drew a German chit, and now we're trying to react to these guys trying to come in and take these areas. So the second thing about the game, we've talked about the setup, the game turn entries over here. I think we've talked about that. The units have the markers on the back for initial placement. So every unit either has a game turn marker on the back or an initial placement hex. So you can see 0410, and once he's in the game, we would flip him over and he would look like that for his setup. You have different terrain in the game. So these are combat modifiers, unless you do close combat, and we'll talk about that in a second. You can see if you're attacking somebody who's in the woods, they get an extra benefit. If they're on a hilltop, they get an extra benefit. It costs you movement points to move across these. And the units themselves are very simple. The bottom left is the combat firepower, and the bottom right is the movement factor, and you just count how many movement factors you'll use to cross the woods is 2, and that unit goes 2 more, and he can't really go into any more terrain, because the next terrain would cost him 2 to get into, and he only has 1 movement point left. So that's how movement basically works in the game. So when your chit is activated, you have the choice of either moving, attacking, and you have to be adjacent to attack, or moving and firing at the same time, which there's a negative modifier for that. You basically take a hit for firing and moving at the same time. So, let's see, and the next thing you do is close combat. So if you want to move into the same hex as somebody else, you can go into a close combat, but you do have to spend 2 movement points to be able to get into that hex. And that's how that works. So another thing that happens in the game is the artillery and air support that comes into the game. So the German player gets artillery, the Allied player gets air support, which basically adds a +1. The Allied player can support each attack with up to 2, defensively or offensively, and the German player can use his artillery to enhance his attack. So in this situation right here, where the Germans are very outnumbering the paratrooper, they're looking at a 14 attack, -2 for being in the woods, so that's a 12 to a 4, so it looks pretty bad for that guy. It's an automatic hit. After he would be hit, add 1 of these markers. If he's hit a second time, it's flipped, and the third time, it's removed from the game. So you get 2 VPs for each objective city hex occupied by a friendly unit. You get 1 VP for each objective town occupied by a friendly unit, 1 VP for each eliminated German unit or allied, which depending on which side that you're on, 1 VP for each German unit remaining on the map at the end of the game, 1 VP for each allied unit on the map at the end of the game, 5 VP for occupying both sides of Arnhem Bridge. So that is big there. And then also, one big thing here is that the 10 VP, if the German player fails to exit the 9th Panzer Division off the bottom edge of the board. So he's going to be involved in some combat here, but by turn 10, when this thing hits 10, I have to move him off the board or be able to get him off the board and get him out of combat. So I am sure that the Allied player is going to try to stop that because that's a huge point swing there. And just blocking that bridge is going to be key there. So it looks like the only way to get across the back there. So far it looks like a great game. I'm only in turn 2, and it's very simple, very inexpensive. This game is about $17, I believe, online at Victory Point Games. The new edition is $25. I haven't played it, but I think it's going to be really good. I've played some of the other D-Day landings, and the chit draw activation mechanic works really well for solo type games or playing with 2 players. You just never know what you're going to expect. And let's make sure I went over the whole full fire. So the battle sequence is included. The whole sequence of play is included right here on the board, so that makes it easy to look up. And then there's really not too many markers here. You can see the different things. And there's also some advanced rules in the game, which I haven't fooled around with yet, but it looks kind of fun. And I hope you enjoyed the review. Take care. Sorry about the shakiness, too.